Baldur's Gate 3 came out in 2023, and at this point everyone knows this game. It won numerous Game of the Year awards, it sold and keeps selling insanely well, and for a decent while it was basically the game everyone was talking about. So this video is not really about explaining what Baldur's Gate 3 is from zero, because of course the more interesting question is what the game looks like now, after dozens of major patches, because Larian has officially wrapped up major development. The final big content patch is out. There is no expansion coming, and outside of smaller fixes, this is now the complete version of Baldur's Gate 3. That makes it a pretty good time to either finally play it, or, which I presume is the case for most people here, simply go back to revisit the game. But before we go into all the major changes that happened here, a few words on what actually makes this game stand out. In case you're a first time buyer, the biggest selling point in this game is the degree of freedom, and I do mean that more literally than most games that claim the same thing, because usually when a game says your choices matter, then it simply means you're picking between two versions of the same cutscene. But in this game the choices actually branch in ways that feel real, because they are. Things you do in the first few hours can quietly close off a whole storyline that you didn't even properly know existed. Or, on the other hand, open one up you were not expecting. And most of this never gets announced or flagged. Just as an example, just recently I made a deal with the devil for a powerful weapon, deciding not to honor the pact, raiding the devil's private manor, stealing back the contract, essentially looting the whole place, then freeing his most important prisoner, and then blowing him up with explosives, stolen from a gnome terrorist organization, on the way out. And that's really just one playthrough's Tuesday. The systems here are open enough that people end up doing completely different things, and all of them are technically the intended experience. And of course the character creation goes very deep too here. 11 races, meaningful races, 12 classes that play completely differently, dozens of subclasses, and a combat system that is turn-based on D&D rules that gives you a lot of freedom to mess around with it. The companions are a standout aspect as well. They are written and acted well enough that people genuinely get attached to them. But let's take a look at the meat of this video, the post-launch story. Because Larian didn't just patch things. The first wave of updates was of course mostly stability work, fixing thousands of issues that a game of this magnitude naturally has, and getting performance, particularly in Act 3, to a place where the game actually ran well consistently. This sounds boring, but bad performance was actually the reason I stopped playing. In Act 3, then the patch 2 added Widow's Wardrobe, which let co-op players bring back custom characters that had been dismissed, instead of losing them permanently. And they also brought in more color content, because people were very vocal about wanting more of her storyline. Patch 3 brought mech support, and the Magic Mirror, which is a camp that lets you change your character's appearance, voice and pronouns mid-playthrough, not the race or body type, but practically everything else. But then patch 5 was probably the most substantial update, for a decent while. They added a full playable epilogue that the base game was genuinely missing, which also by extension gave proper closure to character stories that previously just kind of ended. And alongside that came honor mode and custom mode. The patch 6 expanded romance content and the camp interactions, added new kissing animations, and improved some of the endgame relationship cinematics, and also tweaked how the game picks who speaks in dialogue, so your main character gets prioritized more consistently. May sound like a small thing, but this actually came up a lot in the community. Patch 7 added 13 new evil ending cinematics, because one of the bigger criticisms of the original release was that going the actual evil route didn't feel as fleshed out narratively, and alongside that came official mod support, with actual tools from Larian, which massively changed the long-term picture. Then patch 8 dropped in April 2025, and Larian called this one the final major content update. No new narrative content or significant storyline changes planned after this one. It's a big note to go out on though. 12 new subclasses, so one for every class, all of them adding options that weren't there before, and changing what builds are possible, sometimes even in ways the community is still working through. On top of that, there's crossplay between PC, Mac, Xbox, and PlayStation 5. This also includes cross-platform progression, and the game also added photo mode. Since then, it's basically been hotfixes, so crash fixes, performance patches, nothing major. The third act has a reputation for feeling weaker than the first two in terms of pacing, and this hasn't really changed. This is definitely worth knowing going in, but the game you're sitting down to right now offers a lot more polish, content and additions. It's vastly improved compared to launch, and honestly that's not a small gap. It really is 2 years of Larian, taking something that had already won everything, and still deciding to keep going anyway.